Board of Assessors meeting to order at 9 a.m. on Thursday, November 5th, 2020. I would ask everybody to bear with me because I have to read a rather lengthy opening statement. Good morning and welcome to the November 5th, 2020 Board of Assessors meeting. As Chair of the Board of Assessors, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the Governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-4, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. All members of the Board of Assessors have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen into this meeting through dialing the following number, 929-205-6099. Once again, that number is 929-205-6099, and using the meeting ID number 897-4674-4167. And once again, that number is 897-4674-4167 and password of 328688. And the password once again is 3286888. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at nashua.newhampshire.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and the National Public Library. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or Channel 16, please call 603-821-2049. Once again, that number would be 603-821-2049, and they will help you connect. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, the reason they are not able to attend the meeting in person, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. All right, at this time I will call the roll. Mr. Early? Mr. Early has not joined us. Mr. Bergeron?
This is Paul Bergeron. I'm a member of the Board of Assessors. I'm following the governor's advisory and joining the meeting remotely from home. There is no one in the room with me.
And I'm Dan Hansberry, and I'm a member of the Board of Assessors, and I'm following the governor's order to meet remotely, and there is no one in the room with me. Please direct all testimony to this board and not to anyone in the audience. If you have questions, they are to be directed to the board, and we will do our best to get them answered. When directing testimony to this board, please announce your name clearly for the record and your address for that matter also. Ms. Brown, are there any changes to today's agenda?
There are no changes.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? All right. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the minutes of the Board of Assessors meeting from October 1st, 2020, accept them and place them on file?
I would so move.
Is there a second? Are there any errors? I'll second it. Are there any errors or corrections? None. Seeing none, I will call the roll. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. The minutes are adopted. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the non-public meeting minutes from the board meeting of October 1st, 2020, accept them and place them on file?
I would so move.
Second, any errors or corrections?
No.
Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Minutes are accepted as presented. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Special Board of Assessors meeting held on October 6, 2020, accept them and place them on file.
I would so move.
I'll second that. Are there any errors or corrections?
No.
I will call the roll. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Minutes are accepted as presented. At this time, I would recognize Director Kimberly Kleiner, who's in charge of administrative services, and part of her responsibility is oversight of the assessing department. Director Kleiner?
Good morning. Just for the note, I think that Mr. Early is trying to get on, although we don't see him in our waiting room. I believe Ms. Brown's trying to work with him.
Okay, thank you.
I will, if the board accepts, I would like to share my screen so the audience may see the pictures I am going to present.
Go right ahead.
So good morning. On October 6th, the assessing department filed our annual MS1 with the New Hampshire DRA. The report is attached to this memo that I've sent the board. The MS1 is also posted on our website. And it was featured in the Assessing Monthly Monitor for October. Earlier this month, I provided the board with a 2019-2020 year-over-year comparison. The October Assessing Monthly Monitor is also attached to this memo and is also available on our website. Our assessors are currently concentrating on our annual sales review of properties. This is for the sales ratio that's due in December. Hundreds of questionnaires have been mailed to residents. We ask our residents, if they can, to return those questionnaires and speak with assessors if it is needed. The assessing department is also working on revisions to our procedures. So when we switched over to AP5 for the CAMA system, that made many changes to reporting, changes to the way that reports are run. Different reports may be available to us, and we are working through all that with our IT department and documenting those changes. So we'll have something that the board can look at later, but this is a process. Sometimes the reports require additional conversation with Patriot Properties. The public kiosk that has always been in our customer service area within assessing is also going to be updated. So it will be updated, it'll have a new look. This will now be linked to the AP5 CAMA system. We'll have new computers. The computers will be upgraded. So we're also, while the department is closed and we are going through renovations, working on that. Within the next couple months, we will post what some commonly refer to as the data disk on our website. And we don't issue this until after the tax bills and after our annual process in our CAMA system. So that'll be more towards the end of December. This data disk that people commonly call it, it's a list of properties and various values related to those properties. And you can see the one currently on the website dated 1/2/2020. Within the next couple days, administrative staff is going to be contacting members of the board to come in and sign the warrant for the final 2020 tax bills. These 2020 tax bill, people often call it the December tax bill. It is the final. December tax bills should be mailed within the next couple weeks. Taxpayers should not be filing any applications for abatement until after that final 2020 tax bill is mailed. The 2020 application for abatement will be posted on our website after the bills are mailed. To assist our residents, the GIS department, Pam Andruszkiewicz, and our assessing department has been working with CDM Smith, a consultant we hired, on a new sales tool. This tool will allow our residents to enter an address and find homes that have sold within a specified distance from that address. The data that's returned will offer specifics regarding those properties, and it will have the ability to download the information into Excel. We're in the final testing of that tool and plan to have it released by the end of the month. We have received a lot of inquiries about the timing of data and reports on our website. So just to clarify a little to the public, it's important for everyone to remember that when we shut down our AP5 system and start to go into the issuing of the final tax bills, there's no entry into the CAMA system after that's shut off. So you won't see anything that has been entered after mid-October and now. And you won't see that until a couple weeks after the tax bills are finalized. So if people see that gap in data, that's why there's nothing being entered into our CAMA system. We're in the final tax bill process. The assessing department renovations are progressing. We're hopeful that staff may be able to move into the space by the end of November. So below is just a few pictures of where we are. Space is currently being framed. So this picture here is actually going to be the new customer service area, and it is outside of the current assessing department. But you can see here what looks like a blue door is not a door at all, it's plastic. This will allow the staff to enter from the assessing department into the new customer service area to assist our residents. So it's very hard to tell, but here where you see these open windows areas will actually be the counter area, and then back from that will be a room constructed out of glass walls. So it's going to provide a lot of upgrades, a lot more room. It's going to be ADA accessible, and they've just started framing that. This is the inside. It looks a little different from what people may remember. Entering in through this double doorway now, this is going to be a new conference room. The purpose of moving our conference room from where it was next to the chief assessor's office to the front of the department is now we'll be able to bring residents into the conference room from the hallway in case there's a longer conversation or a member of the public that needs to sit and discuss something with the staff. This is the other view of the department. So you may remember down in this corner here, I'm not sure you can see my cursor, but in the corner where this ladder is way over on the left-hand side, that used to be where GIS sat. This renovation will provide a flip-flop of the department. So where assessors and GIS were normally located will now be the administrative staff. And in the old customer service area will now be the location of our assessors. I also attached and sent to the board the latest status update from Vision. So we issued Ward 6 letters a couple weeks ago. Vision is approximately 53% complete with exterior inspections. They should start data collection in Ward 6 sometime this week. And just so the board knows, we have not received any additional updates from the state regarding any change to inspections due to COVID. So both Vision and I are watching that closely. There has not been any change, and other municipalities are continuing with the exterior inspections at this time. And that's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Early, have you joined us?
Yes, I have. Sorry about being late. With a name like Early, that's not a good sign. But I'm following the governor's direction and joining the meeting from home, and no one else is in the room with me.
Thank you. Director Kleiner, going back to what you just said, so the state directive is no entry into any properties, is that correct?
At this time, they have not changed their directive of suspending interior inspections. That's correct.
And that goes for businesses that are open for business and medical and dental and legal practices that are open, is that correct?
So commercial data collection just began. And for the most part, if they are allowed to enter into a business, they will. So if you have a doctor's office and when a data collector goes to a resident or a business, they knock, they step back, and they have a conversation. So if that business is agreeable to letting the data collectors in, they can proceed. But for the most part with residential, they are not asking to go in at all.
And then do we have a sense of what, say, other New England states are doing relative to this?
We do. So a lot of states have suspended interior inspections. And now, because of the uptick that we're seeing, and I'm sure we've all heard the reports, the State Department of Public Health just came out and said we're in a second wave. I don't see that changing right now, both for the safety of our residents and the safety of our data collectors.
And then do we have a sense of what's going to happen when they finish with Ward 9? I mean, have we thought concretely about that? Is there a plan in place, or have we not gotten that to that point in the decision-making process?
We haven't gotten in that point. We're going to look with Vision. We're going to have some conversations with the Department of Revenue to see what they suggest we proceed, how we proceed. We've got probably 3-4 months before that point, and we're hoping that something changes, but we realize people would like to know how we're going to progress and have a plan in action. Unfortunately, there's a lot of variables.
Okay. And the other question that I would have is, obviously there are mass appraisals going on in other communities throughout the country that started earlier than Nashua did. And for those people or those companies that have reached, or those communities that have reached the end of the road on the outside assessments, what has happened? Do you know?
So we looked into it a little bit with a couple revaluation companies. There have been some communities where their revaluation was at the legal date. They had to complete it in order to have values anew within the state statute, and they did so with strictly the exterior inspections.
Okay.
We haven't found any communities, unless it is a cyclical process and they have time that have actually stopped their process. So there are communities that have a cyclical process, and every year they do, a third or half or a quarter. So they have time because they don't have to do that final piece of updating their values.
Are there further questions for Director Klein?
No,
Okay, thank you very much. New business, is there a motion to adopt the proposed 2021 Board of Assessors schedule?
so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
No.
I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. There is no unfinished business. We've reached the point in the meeting for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would care?
Laura Cajon.
And would you please state your address, please?
It's Laura Cajon at 30 Greenwood Drive.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
First of all, I wanted to say that I still have not gotten any answers to my questions on the reference to the 4 sale properties that were actually qualified in 2020 that I mentioned at the last board meeting. So is someone still working on these to get my answers? Second, in reviewing the city's website, I noticed that the dashboard is very confusing and there is no tutorial on the use of the dashboard on the website to explain how a resident can work with it. This information is very important to the Nashua resident because after the December 2020 tax bills are issued, residents will be needing this information in order to file an abatement. This dashboard has tripled the time that a resident will spend on researching properties that are similar to theirs and/or made it almost impossible for a resident to do a research necessary to file an abatement. Is the city trying to deter residents from filing an abatement? Within the city's website, under GSI map/assessing information, it states use property lookup, and it goes to the old sales information. However, if a resident goes to this area, the sales are only through April 20th. So on the old sales lookup, it had the information like use code with description, style of the property, and very important, it also showed if the sale was qualified. None of this information is on the dashboard. So how does the city expect the residents to do their due diligence on using the sales information for their abatement? Is the city forcing the resident to pay for an additional appraisal on the property? And if that's the case, is the Board of Assessors even going to look at the application and/or the appraisal? The dashboard also has no way to print out the information about the sales. The dashboard is also broken down into categories that are not explained. Example EA, which states that it's an early average property. How is a resident to know what property their house falls under? A house at 41 Brookline Street sold for $450,000 in January 2020. However, it is currently assessed at $362,000. This property had an EYB of 1959 and a good rating and a depreciation factor of 29%. This property clearly has been updated over the year, which the city has not captured. Another property that fell under this category, EA, is 28 Stevens Street, which sold for $280,000 and is currently assessed at $222,800. This property has an EYB of 1969 with an average rating and a depreciation factor of 34.3%. Apparently, this home does not have the updates that the Brookline home has. Another category on the dashboard uses EF, which stands for early fair. However, a property at 23 Chihuahua, which is early fair, was assessed at $67,600 land only in 2019. This property sold in January 20th for $418,500. However, the new house was not put on the property, so how could it fall under early fair? Hold on a second. It appears this new dashboard is only hurting the Nashua residents, and I want to know how the city is going to correct these problems to start looking out for the residents. It is a fair question because the residents of Nashua are the ones paying the bill for this new dashboard. Also, Ms. Kleiner stated and has told the public that changes on the property card records would be fully documented. However, I have found changes to the property card with no notions. Examples are 14 Thorndike Street. The assessor closed out the permit on October 9, 2019 for an addition of $70,000. Assessor did not bother to take off the additional depreciation of 30% for under construction. The EYB was changed to 1995 with no documentation on the property card in the comments section. This change was not done by Vision. On the 6 Bates Drive, they did not close out the $90,000 alteration. However, the property sold in 2019 for $460,000. Currently, the assessment is at $315,500. Also changed the EYB from 1959 with a 40% depreciation to 1979 with a 27% depreciation with no notice on the property card. This change was also not done by Vision. 12 Ritter Street, the property sold in June of 2020 for $255,000. The assessors changed the assessment from $113,300 to $210,800 with no notes. The assessors also changed the EYB from 1959 with a poor rating of 61.2% depreciation to 1994 average depreciation of 16.8 with no notes on the property card. I have printouts of both the 2019 and 2020 property card, and it clearly shows that the EYB was changed with no notes being made on the property card. It was documented that Vision would not make any changes to the EYB. So who's making these changes? These factors are very important and therefore should be documented on the property card. When is the city going to hold the assessing staff accountable for these changes? Can I expect an answer on my questions? Thank you.
You're welcome. Director Kleiner, there were numerous questions that were raised there. Is that something that the assessing department will respond to regarding the citizens' inquiries?
And so, yes, so I would point to the update that I just gave. While we have a number of residents who have appreciated the new dashboards, we did work to create a tool very similar to what the resident who just spoke speaks about. So she's talking about our tool that's connected to our GIS system and to the CAMA system. That's a tool that I just reported will be done by the end of the month and will be a much upgraded tool. The reason for that is the old sales tool didn't work properly with the AP5 CAMA system. So it's going to be a new tool. It's going to be very user-friendly, very map-based. You're going to be able to download it into Excel and move the data around. And the tool should be available in plenty of time for a resident to do due diligence on submitting a 2020 abatement.
Can I ask a question on, as far as you go to the GIS maps, it says you use property sales lookup. It directs you back to the old section. When is this going to be updated so that people don't look at this and not know what they're doing? End of the month.
Ms. Colquhoun, your time was up. I actually let you go a minute or two over, but Director Kleiner, Ms. Colquhoun did raise questions about numerous properties. How do we normally handle that? Do we respond to the citizens' concerns with those types of questions?
So certainly if and I'm glad you brought this up. So if a member of the public brings up a specific property, and a couple of the properties that were just referenced, we have looked at. But we don't normally go through a list of properties and respond to a resident about every single property that they have brought up. Certainly, if we review them, if there's some correction that needs to be made, we will make those corrections. And certainly if the property is their own, we will have a discussion with them.
All right, thank you. And I should have reminded everyone at the beginning, it's a 5-minute limitation on the public comment period. And as I said, I was generous with Ms. Colquhoun and let it go over, but going forward, just remember that it is a 5-minute limit. Are there other members of the public who would care to address the board?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street.
All right, thank you. Go right ahead.
I appreciate hearing that we're working on updating policies and procedures per running AP5 software. I think that's terrific. Of course, you know I'm all about transparency, and I hope these new policies and procedures strongly consider the transparency issues and making records open access to the public and information easy to access for us. I've had some concerns that changes we've made in the department have actually closed down some of that transparency. I don't like our email storage system at all that's been put in place, and I don't know when it happened. So that's a concern to me, but I would like to ask that all reports, Ms. Kleiner mentioned that some new reporting might be available, that the reports that are available as public reports, that sheet that I was sent privately through a right to know of all accessible public reports be put into the manual as you know, in the front section. Here's what's available, here's what we produce, period. And anything new that's being added, you update it. I think that's terrific. Ms. Colquhoun's issue with sales data was also mine. You know, Ms. Kleiner has mentioned that she's had some people who have been very successful with the dashboard. If they're members of the public, connect them to people like myself and Laura, because we're interested, and the city doesn't have time to provide a tutorial through its assessors to us. But if there are people who are wildly successful, give our name out and have them call us. I'm going to work with the former clerk, who retired from the city, to sit down with her and go over this dashboard and see if she can help me figure it out, because I struggled with it. And I don't mind confessing that I'm not a technology whiz. I'm an older woman, and I don't, wrap myself in this stuff all the time. But I think I'm smart enough to work with it, and I'd like the respect that I think I deserve to be able to use the tool that we spent so much money on with taxpayer dollars to create better quality control, and I'm not certain how to use it. I'm not certain how to read it. So I think that's terrific. I'm very concerned about RSA 76:16. You folks and myself got a letter from the BTLA. They failed to rule on my fundamental concern about RSA 76:16, stating that the Board of Assessors should review the word is shall, review all abatement applications. Obviously, this board has chosen, probably through the advice of legal, to delegate that. I am going to, Attorney Lehman's going to appeal to, the BTLA. We're going to pursue some communication, with the DRA about this, because somebody should be responsible for this. This year, am going to get a copy of every abatement application submitted. I'll be going into the assessing office weekly and collecting every application submitted. I'm going to encourage people who file to request that their applications be put into the board packet and sent to the Board of Assessors. I think it's only fair. We've lost a lot of applications that don't get recorded or handled correctly. Last year was a year that was really concerning to me. I put a letter out to all the chiefs in the state. I got a terrific response within a matter of hours. And I was sent copies of abatement reports from 2 municipalities, large like ours, that were phenomenal, done by their software. I hope our software, for the money we spent, can produce reports that are as phenomenal as those, because that's the kind of report this board should be seeing. It tracks everything. I had to put in, 5 right to knows to get what they produce in a report and send to me in 15 minutes. That shouldn't be happening in Nashua. So I feel very strongly about that reporting, and I feel very strongly about the board's responsibilities. Also, I really wondered what happened to 2830 Berkeley Street abatement for 2019 and 18. It was never on the list. I had to submit a right to know. I wanted to know why the minutes weren't unsealed. I couldn't find it. I get a snarky response from Attorney Leonard that causes me to have to submit another right to know to try to find the exact record. And you should understand, I'm interested in a property like that because it's down the street from me. It affects my property value. I'm in an appeal process for 2 years, and I'm interested on what the city gave them. I'm interested on what you did. Of course I am. I know they wanted the ratio. I wanted it too. They got it. I didn't. Obviously, I'm tracking that. When you don't make that a public record or that abatement isn't put on the list, I'm concerned. I don't know what happened, except it looks like you're hiding information from me and the public. So that doesn't sit well with me. I'm going to try another abatement for 2020. I'm going to test the system out. We have a new contractor who's a consultant. I want to see how this works. And this time I'm going to track it like a dog. The other thing I wanted was the numbers that the assessors use to deal with differentials in square footage and features when they do abatements on their sales grid sheets. They were willing to give me that at the counter 1.5 years ago. When I wrote the right to know, I got another snarky response from Attorney Leonard that they didn't have to answer the question and they wouldn't, and I couldn't submit an abatement until the tax bills are mailed. Well, that's next week. That's about 10 days away. Tax bills are going out on the 15th. I contacted Dave Fredette. So that's happening. So, if you can submit on the 15th, you're kind of working on it now. That's why I wanted to know. But what I didn't think about, and I contacted the old clerk who we had, the wonderful woman, and that is a Excel spreadsheet with the formulas in it. So I'm going to put in a right to know for the sheet with the formulas in a readable, writable format so I can just follow it myself. But I shouldn't have to do that. Celia Leonard and the legal office and the assessing office should be willing to hand that to me without writing snarky letters back and drawing out a process. It's just become so untenably hostile and difficult for no reason at all. I'm helping other people with abatements and I can't even get the sales data they need to do it. And even though Ms. Kleiner says you have plenty of time, you don't really. It's a first come, first served basis. And let me tell you, I will be there first this year. I've never been first come, first served. And if you don't want to service me, this year I'm going to say, throw me out right away and let me go up to the state. I'm fine to do that. But I want that first come, first served basis. And I'm also very concerned by what Ms. Colhoun found in the records I looked at. EYBs being changed and undocumented are a stickler issue for me. It deeply affected my assessment in my neighborhood. So please pay attention to documentation. And obviously there was some private discussion. When a property is off by 50%, you are fixing some of those because they're so outrageously low, you don't want to leave them that low. I understand that, but we should know what the threshold is and the cutoff for making these changes because they're happening.
Ms.
We know we're
Sotolano,
going to get a very low ratio.
Ms.
Yeah,
Sotolano.
I'm all done.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other members of the public who would like to comment? Okay. Hearing none. Are there any comments by members of the board?
I don't have any.
No,
Okay. Is there a motion to go into non-public session for 2 reasons? First, to discuss matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy, if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant, pursuant to RSA 91-3-A:3 Roman numeral 2, parenthetical C. Second, under 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parenthetical L, for the consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel, either in writing or orally, to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Let the record show that we have entered non-public session at 9:41 a.m.